And hopefully... Well, looks like we're on. I just got a YouTube notification, so that's good.
Oh, I didn't.
Oh, you're joking me. Really? Hey, One Funky Lions fan. Sorry about the issues there.
Oh, what? Can people hear us?
Oh, yeah, we're on.
Oh, God.
I just wanted to come on and just say hi and apologize to people if they're actually still here, which would be great.
Oh, okay.
All right. It looks like it's still streaming fine. So shall we pick it up from where I left off?
Yeah, let's go.
Yep.
So I think I was talking about Khalif Raymond, and just saying how I felt like he brought special teams upside as a returner at the vet minimum, and the rest of them I thought they were redundant. Do you guys buy that at all?
It's really difficult with these receivers because, as I say, there's so many depth players there, but none of them are standout. I mean, you mentioned Raymond there with the whole return game and whatnot, but I mean, our senior ball squad, there were a lot of good returners on that team. I don't know whether we're going to... If we draft one, then does his role become completely different? I mean, we had Velus Jones on there, who's ran for nearly 2,400 yards in college on his returns. You have Calvin Austin in there, who's done return work. I mean, it all depends on what they want to do in the draft, I guess, when it comes to him. So it's very difficult to say what's going to go on with these receivers. I feel like if Goff's staying a year, they might keep Reynolds. But Raymond and Hodge, it's all about the money. I mean, you said you'd keep him, but what money would it be at?
Oh, 1 million.
Would you reckon he'd take that?
I mean, I think he'd consider it, yeah.
I mean, he's been here. I mean, in Hodge's case, he's been here a year now. Is he going to accept a second year of minimal pay? I don't know if he will or not.
It's hard to say, isn't it?
Well, if they don't, they're cast out into the big, bad, wide open world. And let's be honest, there weren't many people actually going to give these guys the gigs before us. So I'd like to think that they would consider staying.
I mean, I think it's better the devil you know in some of these cases. Like I say, with such a strong wide receiver market out there as well, a lot of the money is going to be going on top guys, and whether there's going to be even smaller deals like 3-4 million for them to go and get out there, that there might not be. So it might be just a place of staying here, taking example from likes of guys like Charles Harris and Tracy Walker, who have skyrocketed their values this year and will either stay here on much better money or go on to better things elsewhere.
I mean, whatever happens, I don't think any of these guys are getting higher than the minimum elsewhere. So they can take it here or they can take it elsewhere. Ash says we also can't forget the god on the roster called Trinity Benson. I mean, he's not a free agent. He's still got, I think, a year left on his deal. I mean, he can go, as far as I'm concerned. I haven't seen enough from him to say that he's a better developmental guy than anyone we could bring in off the street. So, I mean, he's not a free agent, but what does he make of Benson?
Get rid.
Sorry, who was this?
Trinity Benson.
I think you keep him for a second year because of the capital you've invested in him. He's on minimum money, and I think if you can even have a slightly decent year with him, you will either get a depth receiver out of him or you'll get your draft picks back from somebody else. I feel like that's... And Brad Holmes himself has said he's a second-year guy. Whether we believe it or not, I don't know. But I think you have to take that chance on him in the second year just to at least try and recoup the investment in him. Don't just give up on him straight away. But then I'm sort of going against my mantra of you've got to earn your spot here. So I don't know. It's a difficult one.
It's a really difficult one. I mean, at the end of the day, I do think you have to earn your roster spot, either by promise or by... I don't think you have to earn your roster spot necessarily by production as long as you look like you're going somewhere. And I think that's like the thing about a lot of the guys that we've drafted, you know. So if you went on pure production last year, well, Derek Barnes is cut. Sorry. Like, didn't show anything really last year for me. He had the odd flash here and there, but the average quality of his play was really poor. But did I see something in him where you could say, no, I see a future with this guy? You know, so there is an element of projection that comes into all of this. You're never cutting someone like Derek Barnes. He's got a massive future with this team. And if I have a look at all three of these guys in Raymond, Reynolds, Hodge, and Trinity Benson, I don't really see a lot of developmental upside here. So you do have to go on pure production.
I don't know. I feel like the best thing with Benson would be to sneak him through to the practice squad and let him develop in peace and protect him, so that when you feel that he might be ready to come up and play on a bigger stage, you promote him up to the senior squad if we need somebody. I feel like that would be the way to go with him.
Fair. All right, let's move on to the offensive line, and we'll start with the interior. With centre Evan Brown, $920,000 he was paid in this most recent season. He obviously played really, really well, coming in to start for the majority of the season with our elite starting centre Frank Ragnow out injured for much of the year. And for most of it, he played like a, top half quality centre. In many metrics, he was just as good as Frank Ragnow, especially in pass blocking, run blocking. He was not necessarily the mauler that Ragnow is, but then who is? But with pass blocking especially, he really, really showed out. And it's hard, isn't it? Because people like him are going to be in demand. He made himself some dollar this season wherever he goes. Can the Lions really afford to pay someone like him reasonable money to stick around?
Yes. I'd pay him the restricted free tender. I know it's about 3.6 million, but I'd pay it happily and wouldn't think twice about it. I think it's a first round tender you put on for about 3 points. Oh, not a first round, but it's the minimum one. But it's 3.6 million for a restricted free agent. I'd pay it happily. You need depth on your offensive line. It showed this year. We had so many injuries, and for the most part, we got lucky. We got really lucky with him. How often you're going to find a backup centre like that of his quality? Answer is very, very, very slim chance of it doing so. And if you have to pay just a little bit more to keep him here, you 100% do it.
I don't think he'll stay. I think he'd want more. I don't think he'll want to be a backup anymore. I think he'll think he's got a chance to start elsewhere. So I'm not convinced that he will put himself in a market for a return. I like the fact that he's very good and that he fills a position of need, but at the same time, if all goes to plan, he won't see the field. So can I spend $3.5 million on a guy I don't want to be seeing on the field unless it's like a jumbo package? I don't think I could commit to that.
I mean, so I don't know whether Ant's seen this because I know he's big on looking at this sort of thing, but do you guys know how much his over the cap valuation was for last year?
Probably a lot.
I've not actually checked for Brown, but it will be high.
Take a swing.
5 million.
7.2.
Take what you've both done and go in the middle. $6.6 million.
Yeesh.
I mean,
in that case, I'd put the highest tender we could on him because someone has to match that, and we get something for him, I believe.
You think so? We'd really put a first round tender on him? I'd be okay with a second, but
I mean, but the tenders, they match the values. Not well. I would put a second rounder on him, maybe. I'd put something high on him. I just think at this level you need that depth there, and Ragnar's going to be coming back off a season where he's missed a full season. If he goes down injured again, there's nothing to say Brown can't come in and play elsewhere on that line as well. We know they like their versatility on that line. I mean, hell, if Jonah Jackson can play centre to a good degree, I'm sure Evan Brown will be able to come in and help at guard as and when he needs to. But if we let him go and Ragnar goes down, then we're going to be very quickly wishing we paid him a few more million to stay.
I'm just trying to find out how much the tenders are at the moment, but I can't find the bloody amounts. Here's over
See,
the cap.
I thought tenders were. I know if you put first round, etc., but it's value of money that's offered to him, and
Yes.
you get if they offer more. So you are taking a chance, but if you put the first round tender on, I believe it's what about 5.5 million, something like that.
First round 5.5 million, second round basically 4 million. Right of first refusal 2.4 million.
So either you're going to commit to him or you're going to play a game of chance where you give him the money and hope someone else will do that for him. Because I mean, if you need a starting centre, a lot of teams need starting centres, a lot of them. So I mean,
well, the Patriots put a second round tender on JC Jackson to try gamble the market, and no one came for him. So it's a game, like I said, it's a game of chance, isn't it?
but I mean, as a very minimum, a second round tender in the 3 million area is not a bad thing. Plus, you know, it's another pick in there. I think if you protect him with that, then we'll see how serious people are about it. But we always talk about O-line depth. It doesn't come cheap, really. If you want good O-line depth, if there's going to be one position on the roster you're going to overpay a little bit, it's got to be on depth there. It has to be.
But then, where do you want the quality O-line depth? So, there's a big argument to say that swing tackle is that really valuable position, but backup interior offensive line is, at least, and I know you're not a big fan of this phrase, positional value terms, not the most valuable position. I know that's the argument against paying Ragnar altogether, and I don't agree with that. But for someone who's potentially not going to be on the field very often, $5.5 or $4 million seems like a heck of a lot of money.
It does, but I want good players on this team, and he's a really good player. I think, you know, you've got to have the competition there. And like I say, there's no reason that he can't become versatile on that line. There's no reason he can't come into guard and play there, especially, you know, his blocking ability, especially his run blocking ability. Oh, it was his pass blocking ability, sorry, was excellent. So if you want some depth in there, if you want your extra packages to come in, because Ragnar will shift out a bit if you've got the big 6-7 man lines in. I think it's just value that you need there. And plus, like I say, it's an investment in the future. You're saying people will pay highly for him. Well, put your money where your mouth is. Give him that money and see if someone comes for him. Because I think, especially if you put the second round tender on it, you either get a really good guy for sub 4 million in there, and it's only going to be a year, don't forget, so it's not putting the long-term rebuild in jeopardy or anything. You either get that or you get another pick in the draft, a very decent pick at that.
I can definitely see some sort of package come out where Jonah Jackson, Frank Ragnow, and Evan Brown are all run out, and you don't know which one's going to be under centre, or they might even shift. I don't know whether a centre can go in motion, but you could make it work. Maybe, surely, Dan Campbell. That sounds exactly like something he might do.
Could you go like center quarterback, like have a center like standing behind the center and just do it that way, just like Brown pushing Ragnow forward and then the quarterback sneaking behind the pair of them? That'd work.
Are you seriously suggesting a quarterback sneak with Evan Brown behind Frank Ragnow?
No, with Jared Goff behind Brown and Ragnow, like a little train, like a little funnel.
Oh no! I think we're delving too deeply now down the rabbit hole.
I think for the overall thing though, you've got to give him the money for it. I think it's a win-win either way for us. Risk the tender, because even if he comes back, he's still a player who's going to contribute to this team. And I think he's going to be worth the money. And if not, you get a good draft pick out of it, and we can reinvest that in a good young player. Second round, it's no to sniff at in this year's draft.
It's very true. It's very true. Second rounder is absolutely massive. I think a second rounder would be worth it. I think that's the tender I like.
Yeah, because if he's worth 6 million according to over the cap, you know, I think teams will value that higher. So, you know, there are a lot of teams that need one. Think Giants. Think was the Eagles one just retired?
No, Eagles still got Jason Kelce, haven't they? He's still playing.
He's about 50 though, isn't he?
No, Jason Kelce's not too old, is he?
There are a few teams that need centers anyhow. So, you know, someone might be willing to come up and get him.
Jason Kelce's only 35. He'll be going for a while.
Oh, wow. He's only 3 years older than us. Yeah, he's young. He's dead young. Absolutely.
Let's move on now and talk about those swing tackles. We've got the tackle Will Holden, $920,000 he ended on. And I know it's a name that seems like a blast from the past and someone's crush here from last year, but Tyrell Crosby was cut, but with an injury designation. And because he was not picked up around the league after he was cut with an injury designation, he reverted to the Lions IR, which technically means he's a free agent out of Detroit this season. He was paid only $700,000 last season. Either of those guys you tempted in bringing back? And could you bring Crosby back?
It depends on the injury. We don't know what the injury. Well, we do know sort of what the injury is, but we don't know the severity. We don't know how he's going to come back, at what level he's going to come back. I love him to bits, but you've got to really see him during OTAs, all that preseason stuff. See that if it's not really knocked him back, because I don't even think he's close to playing at the minute, is he? He's not long had it. I'm not sure he's close to playing, so it's a bit of a concern there. Holden can go bye elsewhere. I don't want him back at all. I think we need to go and look elsewhere for another guy. Crosby, you've got to wait and see what the fitness is like. But if he's anywhere near like he was before, he's the perfect swing tackle here. You bring him back and you pay him good backup money, and then you've got your swing tackle there. He can do both.
See, Crosby is difficult because if he had not got hurt when we released him, he would have been picked up so quickly. I think he would have had multiple offers on the table because they know what he'd done. Is he going to want to come back, as you say, the backup? Is he going to want to be used in those optional packages as this swing? Or is he going to want to try, see if he can land on his feet somewhere as a bit more of a long-term starter role? I think it's going to purely come down to cost. Like, what really is the maximum you pay him after a whole year off hurt? Because, let's say, that $700,000 is a good baseline, but that's for a year where you didn't get very much out of him. So it's very hard to gauge where his market's going to be next year. I'd like to keep him back, but I feel like doing it cheap as possible might be difficult. He might feel like he won't want to be lowballed. Will Holden, I'm not bothered. He can easily be replaced. We saw so many guys come through the doors this year that could do what he did.
So my theory is that Will Holden kept coming back, kept getting re-signed to that roster because I think Hank Fraley sees something in him as something that he wants to keep around. Now, I haven't seen it from Will, but he's hardly seen the field. I think that he can come back at least on the practice squad and be elevated a couple of times, and then we'll see what happens. Crosby, I think, it's not his fault. You know, he was potentially misdiagnosed. The trainer was fired from Detroit last season, citing, some irregularities potentially with what was happening. And then it comes out that Crosby was misdiagnosed while he was here and his injury was actually more severe than thought. That's not Crosby's fault. But when it comes to it, I think there's going to be a seed planted in the brains of some of the coaching staff that the relationship just isn't quite there with Crosby. So it's not Crosby's fault, and I don't think it's the coaching staff's fault. But at the end of the day, I just don't see Tyrell coming back. And with Matt Nelson being a very good sixth lineman, I don't mean swing tackle because he didn't play very well, but when he came in as the extra guy, he was very good. I think Nelson has to fill that OT3 role, and then you're just looking for someone who's merely viable. And yeah, we can get people who can do Holden's role off the street, but we know Holden. And Ant said earlier, better the devil you know. I kind of run with that theory. So for me, he can come back. I'm not that fussed by it really either way, but it just feels like there's something there, a little something.
Him and his 28 pass blocking grade, yeah, they can come back.
You can't expect...
You live by PFF, you die by PFF.
Okay, but we have just talked about the fact that if you see developmental traits in someone, that you have to look a little bit past production. And if you're looking this far down the depth chart at some of these offensive guys, your production's going to be hampered somewhat. And also, one of the reasons we were praising Sewell and Decker so much this season is that they went up against some of these premium pass rushes, and they did better than you would expect them to in those situations. Well, let's put in some guy off the street against some of these guys. That's not going to work. If you want him to get a really high blocking grade. Your expectations are too high now. I'd hope for better, but new system, new team. I mean, I think there's a lot of mitigating circumstances here. I don't think that's an entirely fair thing.
I do. I think we need to aim for better than just merely serviceable guys down. You saw what the Packers did this year. They played all year without Bakhtiari at left tackle. They put Elton Jenkins in there, who plays all across that line. He plays to a very high degree. Elton Jenkins goes down. They put Yosh Neiman in there. He's one of the better graded left tackles in this league. How come they can sort of get these guys who can come in and perform really well at depth? We need to aim for better and expect better. So, he's not shown me that he can be anything that special. I know he's only taken 80-odd snaps this year, but he was playing against the backups in that Green Bay game for the most part of that. He was still getting skinned alive on those pass rush reps. Teams have shown that you can go down the backup chart and still get production. You've just got to expect more from your players.
Fair. Can't argue with that. Right. That rounds up the outgoing players on the offensive side of the ball. Now, incoming, and really this is a discussion on what the needs are. Now, I've kind of looked at who's going out and just said, well, actually, obviously there's the needs that are going to be there. I don't really identify any other potential needs so far, but you can tell me if I'm wrong and we can speculate on those too. So I'm looking at quarterbacks 2 and 3. I'm not necessarily looking to bring in someone to necessarily challenge Goff directly. I think that's more likely to come from the draft, if anywhere, but actually I don't think it's going to come at all. But we'll see. I'm looking at wide receivers 1 and 2. I'm looking at tight ends 2 and 3. And that OT4 role. They're all potential ones if none of these guys come back. So if we look at core... Sorry?
We've got questions on this as well from Twitter, remember.
I actually don't, so you'll have to just lead that bit at the end if you don't mind.
I'll interject them as we go along.
Do it. Okay, so let's start off with quarterbacks. We talked about Tim Boyle and David Blau potentially outgoing, and let's have a look at the list per spot rack as to who's available in the outgoing quarterbacks for this season. Now, I've picked out a few that are potential options. I know that it's been mentioned a few times by people wanting to flame certain guys out there, but it is unfortunately a potential option. Mitchell Trubisky is out there, and he's not going to need paying very much. You've got Blaine Gabbert, you've got Mike Glennon, you've got who else is there? Mariota's going to want too much. You're not going to go that way. Brandon Allen, Geno Smith, Trevor Siemian did quite well in New Orleans actually when he was asked to play a little bit. Now, what do you think? I mean, you guys wanted someone with a bit better pedigree than Tim Boyle. So who's your guy from that list?
I can't believe I'm going to say this, but I'd bring in Mitch as quarterback too. I can't believe I would ever say this in my life ever, but I think for a guy who you're going to get for vet minimum because he's proved that he can get absolutely nothing more than that, we've seen that he's accustomed to the NFC North. We've seen in games, especially against us, that he can play here, there, and here and there. And here he's going to be playing behind a far superior offensive line because he was left to die in Chicago, and he was kind of hung out a little bit there as well. He was. Justin Fields is going to get the same treatment this year. He's going to be left to die behind a non-existent offensive line. So for the money you're paying for what you could potentially get out of him, I think you've got good value there if he comes in and does well. And then you have Montez as your third guy. If he completely flames, you've got a development one in there. Because I think obviously quarterback's going to be really addressed next year. And, this year you're going to roll with Goff on his second year. Maybe get some out of Mitch. You got Montez there. It's just something to roll with. Can't believe I'd ever say it, but it's just the one that makes most sense for me in terms of where we're at and what we need. I don't think we're going to draft one. So give Mitch Vetman, see if he wants to come back, maybe get some revenge on the Bears.
See, I can kind of make a case for Brandon Allen. So is Brandon Allen the one from... Which one's the Washington guy and which one's the Panthers guy?
Brandon...
In Allen, Denver.
No, none of those. Where is Brandon Allen from? Let's go for it.
I thought it was the Panthers.
Well, it's according to SpotRack, he's in Cincinnati.
Ah.
But there we go. I don't see anyone from the... Oh, Panthers only have listed Cam Newton on here as UFA. So other guys that are on this
if
list...
Allen sat behind Darnold...
apparently, Ash thinks that it might be...
Newton, you don't want him.
So apparently Ash thinks it's Kyle Allen that Rye's thinking of.
Yeah, no. Do you know what? I'd take Brandon Allen because 1, he's cheap. 2, he's no threat to Goff, and that fills the 2 criteria. I don't want to piss money away on a quarterback that I don't want to see take the field, but I want someone that has got enough experience to stand there with a headset on and pretend he's doing something with a clipboard. And then QB3, who's already here, Steven Montez. But I'm also like I've looked at who's in the USFL draft pool as well. There's potential backup NFL quarterbacks there that are going to be drafted in the next 2 days. Like the Lions just had Jordan Ta'amu, who has got potential to be a 2-3. So I'm not going to rule out any of them guys having a good few months and one of them being a backup or a QB3. So maybe the QB2 in the is not even in the NFL right now. So I think I'm keeping all options open. Mitch has got a good pedigree. He knows the NFC North well. I agree. I don't know how much money he'll want. Mike Glennon, God knows I'd stay put my eyes closed. But some of those names literally make me shiver. So, but no, like I say I'd take an Allen and I'll take Montez. I think we only need a QB too.
I just want to say to Depp fan man, he says why are we not saying about this with cynicism or immediate laughter. I feel dirty as hell saying it, but I don't know.
Don't think we don't.
You know what? I spent so much time mocking him on there, and I can't believe it. But I just don't think it's an issue this year. Just put anyone in there, but I think he just gives you the immediate sort of upside, possibly, rather than someone like Glennon who's just going to sit here and rob money off you. So, as dirty as it is, it just has to be said.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, I think the guy that showed the most last season out of all of the people that I can see on this list who are realistic targets, I think that the person is probably Geno Smith. I think that Geno, for a large part, looked just as good as Russell Wilson did. Russ kind of came on down the stretch, but Geno Smith kept that Seattle team in games when Seattle were trash all year. I think that Geno could actually get paid quite well as a backup. I'd be surprised if he doesn't, especially given the lack of good free agency talent and the lack of good options in the draft too. So I don't know how realistic that is really. There's also AJ McCarron. Can't stomach that. Honestly,
is Huntley a free agent?
Not according to this, no.
I think he's a restricted free agent or something like that.
He's one of the best backups in the league, from what I saw last year.
I don't think the Ravens are going to let him go. I think the Ravens will pay to keep him. I've seen a lot of people saying it, but I think he's in that exclusive rights free agent group, somewhere where you don't get a sniff at them unless they're released.
Ash keeps suggesting Colt McCoy. I suggest we keep ignoring him. Anyone?
How old is he? He's like 50.
Is Minshew Mania available?
No, he's still got a year to go in Philly.
Damn it.
Good, because he's annoying, Minshew. He comes with all that hype. The play is crap. The ego's funny, but the play is naff.
Or you know what? We just don't take a vet or anything. We take a flyer on a developmental quarterback and we put them and Montez in to fight behind Goff next year. I think, either take the likes of your Caleb Ellaby or your Akil Glass or something like that. Let them fight it out. Them, Montez, may the best man win.
Yeah, fair. I can go for that. All right, let's move on to the next position on the list. And I've got wide receivers 1 and 2. So we've got Amon-Ra. We might pick up some in the draft, but for now I'd just like to speculate. Let's say there's no wide receiver in the draft that we take. Or, we don't draft a 1, perhaps. There's several out there that we could perhaps target in free agency. The number 1 guy I think I see get mentioned is Michael Gallup, but you've also got Christian Kirk, you've got DJ Chark, some of the other guys who are also on the UFA list who perhaps don't fill that 1 role but could come in to contribute. You've got DeMarcus Robinson, Traquan Smith, Byron Pringle, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Russell Gage, Laquan Treadwell. There's lots of guys who have shown some production. I mean, you have a look at Traquan Smith. That guy, in large part, carried New Orleans because they had absolutely no one at wide receiver over the past couple of years, and he's been quite good. I mean, I won't say he's been really good, but he's been quite good. Gage always gets spoken of quite highly in Atlanta, despite the fact he's never really done it. Valdez-Scantling's a drop machine, but how often you see him, catch a 60-yard touchdown pass, maybe only catch rate of 45%, but if you've got someone like Amon-Ra St. Brown, maybe a burner like that is someone that you need. So out of that list, is there anyone you really want, or is there someone you think they might go for there?
Well, you've just ruled everyone out you've just mentioned there, because as you said, this is wide receiver 1 or 2 we're looking for. If these guys can't come here and be at least the second guy in this team, then we should not be going after them, because we have our depth guys, we have our slot guy, and I just don't think that any of those you've mentioned beforehand are there, really. Gage, no. Valdez-Scantling, hell no. These guys, Traquan Swift, they've not been lead receivers on their teams. We've got enough guys here who are filling the depth chart. So I think, people say there's a lot of good out there, but I think, especially for the ones, you're going to be overpaying them. I know Gallup's just tore his ACL, which is going to obviously affect what your perception is of him. Obviously, he's a really good wide receiver, but how's he going to come back from the injury? You don't know. Some bounce back better than others. You'll be paying a lot of money for a guy who's just coming back off a serious injury. Kirk, not a chance in hell. His over-the-cap valuation's $10.4 million a year, and there's no way in God's green earth I'm paying him over $10 million a year. It's just not happening. So I think there's very few viable options out there. But if you go get a guy, he's got to be a viable 1 or 2. And anyone else, no, nay.
What is this infatuation with Christian Kirk? I don't understand it. He's not done anything to date. He is not a 1. He is not a 1 in this league whatsoever. People were talking about him before the trade deadline, all these links. I was just thinking, please just stop. He doesn't offer what we need. He's not big. He's not strong. He's not a 1. I'm not convinced we really need a 2. There's a 2 out there. If we go hard on a wide receiver, it's got to be a 1, and it's got to be a home run. But why on earth would Chris Godwin want to come to Detroit? I don't think in any shape or form, unless we overpay, that he would want to come to this team. And there's only a handful of guys, I think, that will go out there and take the wide receiver 1 role by the scruff of the neck, and he's one of them. But I think we'll end up either 1, paying too much, or 2, just going out and just trying to pick up anyone to try fill a role. Like I said, I would much rather take a gamble on drafting one than pay through the nose for some of these guys.
And if I could just shut down the one I'm seeing unnervingly regularly, and that's Allen Robinson. You can get the hell out of here with him. Don't want anything to do with him in Detroit whatsoever. He took Chicago's money last year and gave them absolutely zero in return. He couldn't be asked. People said, he's injured, but he bailed out of blocks. He bailed on his team. Not the attitude you want here. He could have sat by his principles and got a trade elsewhere. He didn't. He took the money, and I'm not paying him £16 million a year, which is what he's projected to get to come here and bring that lazy attitude with him. Not a chance.
Yeah, I think Allen Robinson, if he was willing to take a cheap deal, you'd have, more of an argument, but I can't see it right now.
Ash did ask about DJ Chark, which is a viable option, but didn't he just break his ankle? I'm pretty sure he had a horrible ankle injury, had surgery, but he's got youth on his side, and he's not the worst. So maybe as a wide receiver 2 on a team-friendly deal, he's someone I might be willing to try to resurrect his career.
So DJ Chark's over the cap projected contract value is $12 million.
He'll never get that.
No.
I don't think.
No.
Coming off such a serious ankle injury, I don't see it.
Exactly, and you've got to be careful when you're paying out big money, especially after the regime we've just had. You've got to make sure you're getting a good guy there. But as Ryan said, Ash did ask about him. He said he's shown glimpses of him maybe been a wide receiver one on a bad team, and he does mention his age as well. So it does fit the philosophy that we have here. But
just draft Drake London. Drake London did the exact same thing. He's bigger, stronger, and snapped his ankle. So I'd rather take a punt on him, if I'm perfectly honest, if I had to choose between the two.
And he works inside out with Amon-Ra because they played together at college.
So in general, I don't like the wide receiver market.
No, you're paying too much. You're either paying too much or the guys aren't good enough for what we need. I don't think there's that, like Ryan said, that middle ground where there might be that nice wide receiver 2, possibly wide receiver 1 for decent money. We don't have the money this year.
So I can pick out 2 guys, both from the same team actually, who might fit the profile, at least in age, who might be able to contribute as a 2, perhaps for a bit cheaper. 2 people who have been buried down a depth chart but have shown production when asked and called upon. And they're both from Pittsburgh. Ray McLeod, James Washington, both 25, both so 25.8 years old, Washington 25.3, Ray McLeod. McLeod had 538 yards last year, average of 7.1, Washington almost averaging 12. And they both look quite good whenever I've watched them.
James Washington's a good deep threat. Like I say, he's got that in his game, his locker.
Yeah, I don't know. It just depends. I feel like if you're going to go for an outside receiver, then they're in the draft. Ryan's already mentioned it. You've got London there. You've got Burks there. These are going to be really good outside receiving threats. They'll be on rookie deals. I don't. If they've seen the value in it, then great, go for it. But I watched the Steelers a bit this year, and neither really jump out has been like, oh God, they're the guys who are going to take us up to the next level. I think that's what we need in our receiver core now. I think we've got plenty of good young talent that can develop there, but I really think we need those top tier guys who can take us to the next level now.
Would anyone trade for Brandon Cooks?
I really think we need to emphasize that.
Would anyone take Brandon Cooks? Or is it because he's nearly 29?
If it's a 6th, if it's a 6th or a 7th, then yeah. If it's a late round draft pick, if it's a day 3 pick, then 100%, absolutely. I'd do the deal now. Just not be fleeced on value. Because at least you're going to get good production out of him. He's going to be great as a leader for the younger teams. I mean, to think of the loyalty he's shown the Texans when he didn't have to. He still played last year. He didn't throw his dummy out the pram like Robinson did. He still got good production last year, working with a brand new quarterback in Davis Mills, who wasn't projected to start this year, and he still got production. So the attitude is there, what Robinson doesn't have. And if you're doing a throwaway day 3 pick, which might be even less than what you paid for Trinity Benson, then absolutely, you 100% go get him.
Any possibility in bringing in a slot guy and perhaps shifting out Amon-Ra a bit more often outside, or do you think that's a non-starter?
I don't think you need to. Just stick with what works. He works best when he's in that position. Don't go shoehorning him outside just for the hell of it. If there's packages where you can use him out there, do so, but play him to his strengths. You saw where his strength was last year and where he got all his production. Don't ruin it by knocking him to the outside. Because he's a great blocker as well, don't forget. So that's why he works so well in the slot blocking as well.
Fair. Right, let's move on to the next positional group. And I've selected tight ends 2 and 3. Now, 2 or 3. So arguable as to where Brock Wright is in that thing. I would say that, he's probably at the moment in terms of production a tight end 3, but he's shown enough flashes for me to say that he could be a future 2. He's obviously still very raw. UDFA last year, so plenty of time for him to develop. Maybe we need someone with a bit more of a veteran presence, someone perhaps to get the most out of TJ Hawkinson as well. There's several guys on this list who perhaps have shown something in the past, but maybe not in the most recent season, or perhaps looking to get paid a little bit more, but not too much. You've got OJ Howard here, you've got Davin Njoku, Ricky Seals-Jones, Dalton Schultz, Jack Conklin. There's loads of tight ends actually out there available this year, plus a few others I haven't mentioned. Anyone there that you guys fancy?
Dalton Schultz. I would love him, but I think he'll want good money. And it's not a position I'm With the looming TJ Hawkinson contract coming up, I don't think I want to throw money at tight end right now. I'm not super high on the draft class, but I'd love Schultz or even Ingram. Like, I feel like maybe he just needs a change of scenery. He's had a bit of a rough ride, but I think he'll be cheap as well, Evan Ingram. Like I say, because he's not got this super production. Like I say, and he's been up and down. But the tight end market, it's not bad. It's certainly not a bad market. Like I say, OJ Howard, not everyone's cup of tea. David Njoku had a really good year this year. Might ask for a decent wedge of money, but there's certainly guys out there. Right now, I think Brock Wright goes into this season as probably tight end 2. Like I say, I think someone's going to have to come in and really upseat him, because I think who knows, the sky could be the limit for him. But I would like to pick up a free agent tight end.
See, I'm the opposite this year. I don't want to touch tight end free agency market. I think it's one market where we don't need to spend a penny. And the reason why, anyone who listens to the college podcast knows that me and Ryan have different views on the tight end class this year. I think the value is great for tight ends in the draft this year. There's no one who you're going to be spending a first round pick on, maybe even a second. But I think as you go down the list, there's plenty of really good blocking tight ends out there who are also decent receiving threats, who are going to take that tight end 2 slot on the roster. Then you mix in behind them if Brock Wright comes back as a specialist guy. You've got Kabinda, who's on his new contract, who's going to be able to come in, provide a good blocking presence there as well. I don't think you need to spend any money on the tight end market this year. I'd draft a guy. There's 2 or 3 I've got my eye on. I think there will be great value. So just draft and then work with what you've got after that. And with TJ healthy, I think you'll have a good tight ends room.
Yeah, I'm really torn by this. I kind of tend to agree with Ant. I think there's some guys down the draft kind of section that you can get lower down who are going to be able to contribute pretty well. But there's some guys that really interest me in here. Chris Herndon from Minnesota, I think, can do it very well. So I think he's shown something. Ricky Seals-Jones, I thought, did really well.
For years. Yeah. Herndon stunk at the Jets for years.
Yeah.
He's not done anything.
Ricky Seals-Jones had a really solid year this year. So the former Lions player and lacrosse player got injured for much of the year, didn't he? And he came in and did really well. Who's the Washington tight end that I'm forgetting the name of?
Logan Thomas.
That's the one. So he was injured for much of the year. Seals-Jones came in. He got 500 yards this year. Like, that's nothing to sniff at for a backup tight end. And he only got paid $990,000.
You forget we need a blocking tight end. We've already got our receiving threat at tight end. You've got to focus on the blocking because it's pivotal when it comes to the 6-man lines and the jumbo packages and all that. We missed a blocking tight end last year. Really, really bad. So I think you have to focus on that before production in a passing game. Because TJ is going to get you 1,000 yards on his own if he's used right.
So on that point, Ash has suggested Max Williams. Now, my main knock on Max is not about his ability. It's the fact he was paid $3.5 million last year. I'm not sure we can afford that for a tight end too.
There's no need with this draft market to go in big on a tight end. I fully believe that.
Just having a look at the projected contract value for Max Williams, $6.6 million.
Yeesh.
Yeah. Can't be doing that. I kind of like Schultz. That'd be nice to see. But anyway, let's move on to our final position group as I had it here, which is the OT4 role. Now, I've not actually managed to pick out a single guy from this group of people that I think is a realistic target. There's plenty of people at the higher end who have shown something. But there's no way we're going for that because we've already got 2 really good starters and we've got a good 6th guy in Nelson. I mean, and he may not be the best swing tackle, but he's a good extra blocker in there. So maybe let's take out everyone who was paid more than $5 million last year. You're now looking at Morgan Moses. He's going to get paid. Jermaine Afidi is not good enough for me, or if he is, he's getting paid too much to be whatever he is. Bobby Massey, Cornelius Lucas, Jason Peters is going to retire probably. Elisode Bushi is a tackle. We know that he's more of a guard and not that great. Going further down the list, it gets even harder. Tyrell Crosby is someone who makes an appearance down there. Bobby Hart out Buffalo. Will Richardson, some of these guys I don't even know if they've taken snaps this year. I mean, it's getting so scraping the barrel. Is there anyone that you guys can see on this list that you'd like to bring in at a realistic price point for someone who's not going to see a lot of reps?
No. We've got money invested in the line. I don't want to go out there and just try plug a gap in. I don't want to spending little to any money on the line at all. We've got people here. I want to sort out who's here in the building first before I commit anything to offensive linemen. Plus, I've also picked up the odd guard in my mock drafts as well. It's a good offensive line class. We had great guys at the Senior Bowl. There's a lot of depth there if you want a tackle or a guard this year. So that's a position I'm not spending money on.
No, I tend to agree. I've gone for a lot of developmental tackles in the draft as well. I mean, you look at the guys who weren't paid well, and the only ones that stand out are the ones who are going to get paid this year. So, like you mentioned, Orlando Brown's only on about 700 grand, but he's going to get paid well. Okora 4 at Pittsburgh, he's going to be paid probably well over 10 million. Those would be the kind of guys you'd like to get from free agency, but they're just going to cost you far too much money. So, I think the draft is another place to go late on because tackle, a lot of reasonably good development projects there this year. Hopefully, we can keep our main 2 guys fit as well.
Plus, the legend of Darren Paolo could be back next year. I saw him in a USL. Actually, he's going to get drafted in the USFL, I believe. So he could come back next year with a bit of experience.
See,
who knows?
If the top 2 can remain reasonably healthy, then Matt Nelson is a perfectly serviceable backup to come in as and when you need him. So, if you've got a 4th guy after that who's, let's say, a young, improving guy, then it should be enough. It just depends on the health of the main 2 guys, though. But again, you've got a lot of money invested in those 2 tackles, and you don't really want to invest a lot more in depth guys behind them. Like, not super, super big amounts.
Plus, we'll bring back Dan Skipper about 10 times during the year, as always.
Oh, Dan Skipper. Can never get rid of that guy.
No.
All right. Ant, do you want to talk about some of these questions that we've got? Because I've not seen those.
I would, but then I've just realised they're sort of defensive questions that obviously we're going to do next week. Although Punk asked us a good question, and I'll put it to us now. He goes, who could you see as a Charles Harris type signing this offseason? So who's maybe on their way out the league or not so well thought of, who you actually quite like and think could have a renaissance here? I've been thinking about this all day. It's quite interesting.
Does he mean does he mean busts that could find a new home?
Yeah. He's thinking, who's come in with no expectations, who could surprise us all. Because, I mean, I guess there were some people who knew about Harris and how good he could be, but didn't realise his potential there. But is there anyone you look at who think, they've not done so well, but they could be great in the right system?
Oh, I wish I thought.
Now everybody's Googling very frantically.
See, I can think of players, but I don't know if they're free agents. If the Patriots got rid of N'Keal Harry and we didn't have to trade for him, I would bring him in. And I'm biased as an Arizona State fan, but he offers everything the Lions need. He's big, he can catch, he's an outside guy with a strong body. I just wish they'd get rid of him because they don't want him, but I don't want to trade for him. I think he could somewhere else in a slimmer role, possibly carve out a role for himself. I would give him a chance if the Patriots axe him, and I definitely think they'll get rid of him because they couldn't trade him. I would bring him in and give him a go because he will be on a vet minimum.
I'm really struggling for someone. No. I'm trying to stick to offense and maybe then answer this question again next week as well, but I'm really struggling.
I mean, I guess you could you see any of the ones here, like a Kadarrell Hodge or someone doing it? If it's any of our free agents, like Tracy Walker has this year. Mind you, I suppose he wasn't a free agent last year, but still. Are there any of the ones who are going out who could?
No, I don't see anyone from us outgoing that I'd pencil into that. Just having a look through the rest of these guys.
Because the one I look at all the time, but I don't know how I was going to get paid and could do really well, would be Jamison Crowder. I know we've talked about him a lot, but I do feel like there's a really special receiver in there with him, but I think
But he was paid $9.5 million
yeah,
last year.
that's the issue, and it's the money there. I mean, if he's like, oh God, I'm gonna need to get a deal somewhere, and you throw like a Tyrell Williams deal at him next year, like a 1 year, 4 million prove it thing, I think then you could potentially get really good value for money out of him if he realizes that potential. You know, we were saying this last year. So I think he took a 1 year deal somewhere. I mean, oh no, there was talks about trading him. But I still think like Crowder could be a special player in the right system. So he'd probably be the one I'd go for.
I can't nail someone down here. It's a bit frustrating. I mean, there's some guys who I think we can make something out of them, but I don't think it quite fits in that sort of Harris type bust sort of, because he was legitimately on his way out of the league. And there's no one here that I'm thinking that of. I'm looking at guys who I don't think are going to get paid particularly much, who've got good upside. I'm thinking maybe Zay Jones from Las Vegas. He was someone who was... Sorry?
Where's John Ross?
Oh God! Well, yeah, he's the sort of ultimate in that area, and maybe we could make something of him. But Zay Jones for me is someone who came in after the former wide receiver there is going to go down for a long, long time after his troubles with the law. And Zay Jones came and picked up the slack in Las Vegas and got 640 yards, only getting paid $2.5 million. Now, I think that's something which could translate for us. He's a dependable receiver, and at the end of the day, I think that this coaching staff respects dependability above all else. So I think he would fit here.
I mean, not necessarily saying he might be the best for us, but someone who is on his way out of the league if he doesn't do well next year is Amon-Ra's brother. Equinemius is out of contract. I don't think the Packers are going to take him back unless he ends up on the practice squad, and he's very close to leaving the league. So maybe a home here revitalizes that and brings the best out of him as well, because they've not kept him around all these years for nothing. But as it stands, he's all the way gone, pretty much. I don't really think he's going to get a deal from anywhere. So
I know a guy, and you mentioned Jay Sternberger. He could be in the USFL. He was a high tight end draft pick.
Chase.
He won't be in the league next year. He's out of the league now, basically already. He's in this draft pool for the USFL, so that is a fall from glory. What was he, a third rounder?
Jay Sternberger was a third rounder 3 years ago.
Yeah. So he, like I say, I'm at the point now where I'd certainly give the guy a chance, and he will take anything. He will give any go. So if he wants to work out, give us a ring.
I'm gutted I forgot about him, actually, because I was harping on about him up until last year, but then I heard there were some issues possibly there with him. But from what I've seen around Packers fans, they've no issues with his attitude or anything. And he blocks very well. Obviously, Green Bay require their tight ends to be great at blocking. So, yeah, I've completely forgotten about him. That might be a choice.
I've already mentioned him, but I'd go Chris Herndon. I think we can turn him around.
Well, yeah, he's definitely in bust going out the league territory.
Hey, I'm trying to fit the script here, the question. So
maybe we can answer it again next week as well. Because I've just sprung it up on you there. But sometimes it's an interesting question though.
Oh
yeah. I mean, this time last year, no one had Charles Harris in there. You know, most improved players of next season, especially when it came to us, who are notoriously known for not having a pass rush.
Well, I think I recall us talking about us bringing him on, going, we've seen this script before. He's got a first-round pedigree. He just hasn't shown it. Those guys never amount to anything, really, and he's completely proven that wrong. Now, it still might be rare, but it's very possible. Someone's just mentioned Sammy Watkins. I don't think he fits the sort of bust out. Josh Gordon would be the ultimate in terms of that.
He actually played this year, didn't he? Was he at the Chiefs? Yeah,
he was at the Chiefs.
It's good to see him back on the field after his troubles. Maybe, just maybe now, what is he like, 29 to 30? Maybe he's someone that you could throw a 1 year flyer at. He can take the roof off a defense. Like I say, he fits that candidate of, well, all the talent in the world, but never been able to show it.
So, are none of you guys tempted by some of So, Mike Williams is someone that we've been linked with a lot at wide receiver. No one's tempted by him?
What, as a rescue story?
I mean, no, he's obviously not a rescue story. He's going to get paid very highly, but just someone that we haven't really talked about that obviously has been linked to us.
No, I think Herbert makes him look good.
One of you.
I think the Bengals have shown the way. The Bengals have shown the way this year. You know, you don't need a lot of vets in your wide receiver. You need good young players, and we have good young players. So let's continue to add good young players. I say we're probably going to spend a first, early, second round pick on one to complement what we've got. So, you know, providing we get the right guys, that should be fine. I mean, I hate to jump back on this same train again, but I mean, the biggest rescue story of all time would be if Mitch Trubisky came here and did well. And I know I fucking hate myself saying it, but if you got him on a vet min deal just to come here and play backup to Goff all season, he got injured, he came and started slinging it about, then that's probably one of the biggest Renaissance stories you ever get.
So Joey 2 times has said Auden Tate, Rashard Higgins, David Moore. Any thoughts?
Auden Tate was a Bengal once, wasn't he? I think, the receiver.
Yeah.
Yeah, he looked okay. Rashard Higgins, he's been about like the Browns and stuff for a few years, hasn't he? He's shown the odd flash. Never been able to hold it down, really, but I'd give it a go. David Moore, I don't know who that is.
That's the Seahawks guy, isn't it?
Yeah,
he's like the forgotten guy behind. No one talks about anyone but Metcalf and Lockett, so he's just another Seahawks receiver.
Freddie Swain, if he hit the market, is he a free agent out of Seattle? I feel like he's done pretty well in recent memory, Freddie Swain.
He's someone who rings a bell with someone who's potentially available, yeah.
He could be a 2. Not really expensive either.
Notice how we've not talked about running backs at all.
There's no need, though. I mean, so I did say, you can argue with me as to what you think the needs are, but for me, we've got 5 running backs I want to keep, so why do we need another one?
That is true. Although, amongst many things, Luke is starting to convince me now that Swift isn't it, that he's not going to be able to carry the load required to be good here. I'm starting to have worries about it.
I've always known that. I accepted that when we drafted him.
But the thing is about that is I actually welcome that sort of thing. I know that Swift won't, but if the coaching staff can get it in their head that Swift can't carry the load, and they go out there and actively seek guys to split the load with him, then that diversifies your risk. At the end of the day, when you have a bell cow running back, that's absolutely great when they're on the field. But when they're not, you're screwed. If you've got 2 guys who can do it to a good standard, well, then one goes down and the other one can pick up the load for a game. That's perfectly fine. And the way we are at the moment, I mean, we've got several guys who can do something quite good in that room right now. So I think that actually things work out quite well with Swift right now. He doesn't have to be that bell cow guy. Obviously, you want someone good enough to be that guy, but I'm not saying you shouldn't go after someone who can be that good. I'm just saying it's not the worst thing for us that we decided, quite rightly, that he can't be the bell cow. That's fine.
We took him too high.
Oh, there's no doubt about that. Yeah.
Like I say, where we took him, like I say, basically a first rounder. It has to be a bell cow, but he can't be. So we put ourselves in his position.
True. I've just seen some.
But no, I won't bring in a running back, like you say. Let's just shuffle up the order a bit. Let's give Jefferson, what's his face, Reynolds.
Godwin.
Let's just give them more touch. Godwin. Let's just give them more touches. And let's just let maybe because Jamal Williams is now going into the final year of this 2-year deal. I'm fine if he's not here next year. If he's here this year now, but let's find the heir apparent to him. Let's get those guys more touches.
Yeah, to paraphrase the great SW line, use more 2-back sets. See what you've got.
Agreed.
Especially when you've got 5 of them. I mean, I've just seen it mentioned in the chat, about that whole chatter about the whole Chase Young thing for Gotham 2. I don't even think that's... I don't know. What do you think?
Oh, not Goff.
Goff and 2
not-
for. I would.
Oh,
See, the big issue I have with this is people saying that, but you've got to pay him in like, what is he, third? He's just done his third year, or has he done his second year? You've got to pay him in about a year, haven't you? So
he's done 2 years, so he's got 2 more, and then he's got his 5th year option, I think. I'd give Goffin 32,
but not
without
Goff.
a doubt.
Yeah.
Oh, Goffin 2 is crazy. Like I say, because he's lost value. Like
Is it Goffin 2 or is it Goffin 32?
No, I've seen 32.
Okay, I could go for that.
Like I said the other day, Goffin 32. I'd do that. I'd take Hamilton at 2. I'll take Howell at 34, and then I'll just bring in I'll bring in a veteran guy to hold down the fort for a year if needs be. That's how I play things. But I don't think Washington is even to entertain that.
I don't. I think it's a
Goff's
non-starter.
too expensive, yeah.
I think it's a non-starter just because of his contract.
Goff needs paying soon.
So, yeah, I mean, that's the thing for me is I would consider 2 and Goff for Young and their second round pick, if they have a second round pick and whatever number that is. I just think that, so if you trade Goff, you save $16 million against the cap. I mean, that's not to be sniffed at. You can re-sign Charles Harris, you can re-sign a wide receiver, you can go out and get a guy at 34 in the draft, and you get Chase Young. You don't then need to bring in one of these guys who isn't going to cut it. Or not necessarily going to cut it, but he's not going to be at the level of a Chase Young. I don't think anyone out there is suggesting that Aiden Hutchinson is going to have the impact that Chase Young has had. I think most draftniks are out there saying there isn't a guy like this in the draft. So Chase Young is much better than these guys are going to be year one. You're saving money. You can use that to reinvest, paying the people who've done well so far this season, and you've still got the cap space you already have right now. I think that's a good deal.
Then you've got a massive quarterback issue.
We have a massive quarterback issue.
Well, we do, but the easiest way out of it is to ride out his contract for 12 months and let him go for no. That's the easiest thing to do. One more year and then no dead cap, no.
Cut Goff, save 16 million. Give
No.
You only save $1 million by cutting Goff. You've got 30 million dead on the tab, as well as Jamie Collins' money.
You only save it if you trade him.
Yeah.
Okay, let's trade Goff. So we get 16 million. Let's give 9 to Charles Harris on a 2-year deal. And then let's say we bring in, a Winston, a Mariota on a 1-year deal and draft a quarterback. Just for a year? Get Chase Young?
I would love to see it. I mean, if you get Chase Young for 2 years and then a 2023 quarterback, that could work out terrifically well.
But are Washington stupid enough to take that deal?
No, I mean, of course not.
Well, you say that, but let's have a look at Washington's track record in the last 2 years about how they've run that organisation. I think they're absolutely stupid enough to do that.
I feel like an upgrade is Jared Goff on Taylor Heinicke on a really good day. On a really good day, how much better is Goff?
Oh, I don't know. Goff down the stretch on his average day in the last 6 games was a good quarterback.
Well, I mean, look at the pass rush in that division. The Giants, meh. The Eagles, yeah.
Yeah.
It's not the. I mean, the Cowboys obviously is pretty good now and make a pass, but ain't the hardest league in the world still.
Just having a look.
I don't see them taking the deal. I don't see them being stupid enough, and I'm not giving any more than the 32 and Goffle. No way.
I just for me. I mean, let's even take this one step further. Then, for me, I don't think Goff can be the guy. His level of play obviously dramatically increased down the stretch, but I want to shoot for the moon. I don't just want to be good. I want to be elite, and you've got to get a rare quarterback to do that. You've got to have a good team. and you've got to have a good quarterback. And if you don't have that, maybe we'll win the NFC North if Aaron Rodgers doesn't come back. And I would love to see that, but would I sacrifice the division title to try and take a shot at it all? Like, it really comes down to what is your philosophy. Is a better shot at division title worth sacrificing Super Bowl chances? Because that is kind of what we're talking about here. And I prefer to shoot for it all. And if we're talking about just saying to Goff, let's play him for this year and then cut him after this year because it makes more sense that way, I do get that as a strategy. I think that is probably what they will do. But for me, if you were able to trade him for pretty much anything, you save $16 million against the cap and don't do anything differently and just roll over that $16 million free to next year when we're more likely to be competitive. I think that's potentially better for our long-term chances than paying the guy this year. I mean, I know that I don't mean it actually do this, but I just mean as a thought experiment, I kind of prefer trading Goff for a pick swap and using that money to do something when we're competitive rather than next year. Because can we win the Super Bowl next year? No. So can we shed cap? Because we could do something in 2023 and we could do something in 2024.
But we can shed the lot in a year.
But you get $16 million more cap space by getting rid of him now and rolling that over to next year. You'd have no Goff and... No, sorry.
So you'd trade him this year if you could?
If I could, for a pick swap, I probably would. Not only...
You'll not get a pick swap with his contract. I think you'll have to send him and picks elsewhere, like the Rams did to us.
Maybe, but we've eaten some of his deal. Don't forget. It's not so bad compared to what the Rams did to us.
I feel like this team needs that much. It's still got a lot of fixes that need doing to it. So you can avoid this question whilst fixing the rest of your side up. If this was a case of, if you're saying now that we could potentially have an NFC North title next year without Goff, if we went balls to the wall and did it, then maybe it's a thing, but it's not really, is it? We could be a lot more competitive in the division next year. We'd certainly come second if we do it right. But, we can see out his deal, cut him for nothing next year, so there's no dead cap weighing us down any year. And then, we're done.
Well, yeah, but the thing is, if you cut him at the end of next season, you will have $10 million against the cap. Now, that's not nothing. I'm just saying, if you can trade him this year, you're $26 million ahead of where you're saying we should be. 26 million is not nothing.
But the cap's going to go up exponentially big next year, so you can swallow that.
Okay, but if the cap goes up, I'm still going to have 26 million more than you will. That means we can get even more players.
You'll give it to Trey Flowers, though, so I'm fine.
Oh, shut your face. That's such a low blow.
I'm sorry, he's going to be cut soon, so I've got to get the jokes in while I can.
I literally can't say anything about anything anymore that Ant disagrees with. It's just going to come straight back to that. And that's me done in the argument.
No, it's not. You know very well it's not. I've had my own fair share of bad takes as well, so,
List one that's close to that.
Tavai?
No, we both had that take.
That, but...
Oh
dear God. I don't know. It's an intriguing one, isn't it? But obviously you have to do it soon to get the money for it, and then you're going to upset Goff if you can't trade him.
Ken Stouder says...
I'm surprised Flowers ain't gone yet. To be honest, I'm surprised with all the free agents of that there's not been more movement already. I'm surprised that they're taking the time so much with it.
Yeah, well. Ken Stouder says, dry those flowers. Thanks, Ken. Cheers, mate. Det Fan Man says, loved Anthony sipping his cuppa after the flowers joke. Yeah, I bet you did. That was smooth.
I did, but there's nothing in there. I thought there was something in there, and there isn't. I'm empty.
Yeah, but I'm drinking something particularly tasty. I don't know whether you guys have had this, actually, but I've just discovered it, and it is Inches cider. not least for the jokes that you can have out there. If you're out drinking with a group of ladies and you say, "Oh, how many
Got
inches
8
would you?"
inches.
Yeah, exactly. But it's some tasty stuff, and I know that the Americans out there will say cider. I mean apple cider, but this is what I think you would describe as hard apple cider. It's alcoholic and indeed hard inches. But there we go.
You know the slogan for that has got to be "More inches is hard to take."
So, well, you can just hear the jokes right now, can't you? You say, "Oh, don't worry, guys, I'll get this round." Go to the bar and say, "I'll have 6 inches, please." Hey. Let's round out talking about the offense by, and I think you chucked in there talking about potentially coaches. Are there any coaching changes that you would like to see made for the offensive side of the ball? I know that people in our position, it's kind of hard to know what their performance has been like. We've obviously seen the offense coordinator change. The tight ends coach role is still open. So, there's potential people that can come in there. Is there anyone that you'd like to see go? Any thoughts on the coaching staff?
No, I keep it the same. I said this about De Leon last week. I said he should probably have a chance to work with a better group of linebackers, and then they canned him. I said the same thing about Brunell with quarterbacks. They should probably wait until he gets a proper blue chipper or something to work with. But they are not been forgiving with the way they're doing it at the minute. So coach-wise, I don't know. All I know is, and I've forgotten his name. I mentioned it the other week. The 49ers kicked out their tight end coach, someone who's trained up Kittle because he wanted more money than they were willing to give him. So just go and get him. I can't remember his name for the life of me, but anyone who's trained up Kittle to the degree they have done, then they should be under consideration straight away.
I fully expect Dan to go ask Josh Hill to try be his tight ends coach. Now he's retired. It won't surprise me if he gave him an interview, even though he's not experienced as a coach, but he wanted him here for a reason, which means he respects him, even if he's not a huge benefactor in an offense. So it won't surprise me to see someone like him come in. I'd like to see a bit more of Antoine Randall L this year, because obviously Auburn President is the passing game coordinator, but I'd like to see the wide receiver coach get a bit more involved, maybe in some of the play design, work a bit more close with Ben Johnson. Let's say have a bit more say, because I think for someone like him, he could offer good insight. Let's say just get more involved maybe in the play calling. Let's say work on the playbook as well.
And he's going to have some premier players to work with this year, I reckon. If not free agency, the draft, he's going to have Amon-Ra as a star, but he's going to have like a proper wide receiver 1-2 star to work with as well. So obviously it'd be interesting to see how he develops them. But if his track record's out to goodbye, he did great with the group last year. We told we had the worst group of wide receivers in the league last year, and that is categorically false.
I was thinking that too, but then I was trying to think where's worse. New Orleans, I would say, was worse, but I'm struggling after that.
Jets, Giants. They're probably more well-named players, but they didn't do as well.
I do think that's an element of coaching, though, and obviously you have to take them as a package, but I'd say that at least the Giants would have better players on their team. If those players were playing for the Lions, they'd have done much better. I know that kind of kills the point, really, but,
Panthers wide receivers were bad.
Which is unbelievable, considering how much they've put into that room.
Yeah.
What's his face? Is it Robbie? One of the most overrated receivers in all of football.
Robbie Anderson.
I can't believe he got that huge deal.
I mean, I could believe it. He did really well in a past life. Burner, but pretty, consistent, and just couldn't turn it on at all at the Panthers last year.
He won't next year either, I don't think.
No,
I don't think.
Well, they've got one pick in the top 100 in the draft, so they're screwed. They're either going to have to really overpay for a quarterback, or there's only one position they can fix, and they'll go tackle, and that's it in the top 100. So they ain't going to get much better, unless they hit free agency well. And I don't know what the money situation's like. So,
not Matt Rule either. He's a clown.
Oh, yeah. So I would be putting the Carolina Panthers very close to number 1 overall next year. I think they're that bad.
yeah, I think you can definitely put them in that conversation now. Speaking of that, I know we're not doing defense this week, but they're chatting about the linebacker coach in the YouTube chat, and I just want to say we need to go to Carolina and we need to kidnap Luke Keithley and we need to keep him in Detroit till we sign a deal to be our new linebackers coach. We need to do that. Not that I condone kidnapping, but in this case, I do, because he fits the profile of what all our coaches are on about. He's a former player, one of the best linebackers of the last decade by far. You know, he's the guy you want in charge of your linebackers. And as far as I'm aware, he's not employed by them at the minute. So, but I would go find him and hunt him down and get him back into coaching.
Don Burst just said that apparently Kelvin Shepherd might get promoted from outside linebackers coach to linebackers coach, which might be... I mean, it's one of those ones where I don't know whether that makes sense, because isn't that just splitting what the guy needs to do? I mean, outside linebacker in this scheme is so different to inside linebacker that I don't know whether splitting that time is going to help, but I don't know. I haven't got a clue, but I will think about it for next week. Anything else that you guys want to bring up at this point?
Nope.
I don't think there's out else going around this week at the moment yet.
So Ashley says that Luke Kuechly was at the Senior Bowl with the Panthers, so he thinks that he is still employed there at the moment. But there we go.
Well, hopefully he didn't return with the Panthers and he was in a black bag in the back of a van going back towards Detroit, and we have him there now.
You need to stop crushing on certain people, because you can't ever get off it.
No, I'm gone. I'm talking about coaches. Everyone would like a linebacker like him. So
I mean,
it's...
I know you're talking about one of the best linebackers to ever play the game, but just because he was a really good player doesn't mean he's going to be a really good coach.
No, that's true. You're right. But I have to say that we've done well with the ex-players so far. It seems to be a scheme in which they fit well. And if I just say, I was all on the Micah Parsons train last year because I saw the similarities in what they do, and he was Defensive Rookie of the Year. Just saying that, it's not a foolhardy thing for me.
Should have been Defensive Player of the Year, really.
Oh, was he not? Oh, mind you, no, he wasn't, was he? But he's been a hell of a player, and we could really do with a linebacker like that. And
yeah, we could.
I'm not saying that was the bad one, but a lot of people critiqued me for it, and I was right, so I don't get to do it very often.
I guess the thing about Parsons was I never doubted his ability. I saw someone there who was that good. I was just so worried about his reported off-field problems. I didn't want to take the risk that he wouldn't be playing. That was why I didn't want him. There we go. Anyway, if there's nothing more to bring up, then we will wrap it here. So our next episode on the main podcast is this time next week, Monday, the 28th of February. Lions defensive free agency incoming and outgoing. Don't forget, Royal Lions College Football Podcast coming up this Wednesday. Remind us again what you're talking about, boys.
So yeah, we're doing a little link up with Michigan State Spartans podcast, guys from Germany, which is going to be interesting. There'll be a bit of an English-German combo going on Wednesday. We're doing a big Big Ten show, so we'll be discussing the draft prospects out of all the Big Ten teams. So we'll go through them team by team, focus a little more on their prospects, and then we'll take a look at their recruiting classes for next year, see possibly where the division could go, because it promises to be very interesting. Now that Harbaugh's going to go back there, he completely sold them out for money with that move to Minnesota. Ryan said it. Ryan called it. He says it's just a money move for him, and lo and behold, he's been paid. He called it right from the off.
9 hours in an interview, and he didn't get a deal. I bet Michigan was sweating buckets, thinking, "Oh, we've lost him." And then he comes back, and they open the checkbook like idiots. Blank check, gave him it.
Unbelievable, but there we go. He played him like a puppet. Just to let you know as well, there is also going to be a Lions Nation Unite stream tomorrow. I'm hoping that one of us is going to be on it, but we just need to work out exactly who. It's going to be at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, 8 p.m. UK time, and it's going to be a Lions trivia show. So don't forget to tune in for that on the Lions Nation Unites YouTube channel. On our socials, you can find us at Royal the Lions UK on YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Facebook group for worldwide fans is Detroit Lions UK fans, UK One Pride worldwide, and the website royalthelionsuk.com. We've got Ashley Soden's article on why Kyle Hamilton is a good pick to take at 2 on there. If you want to either feel really good about how you feel about him or get really, really angry about something, I recommend you go and have a look at that. I've also had a look at how Brad Holmes has done in year 1. Spoiler alert, he did pretty well. There's also some more articles coming out. We're taking on someone new. Hopefully the welcome article is coming shortly for that, and there might be a few others in the works too. So the articles are going to start coming thick and fast, especially in the run-up to the NFL draft. But it just remains for me to thank my co-hosts Ryan McCluskey and Anthony Fitzpatrick. Apologies for our tech issues earlier on today, but thank you for sticking with us. My name is Matthew Turner. We'll see you next week on the Royal Lions UK podcast. Let's go Lions, One Pride.
One Pride.